If you have grown up in Europe, the age you're allowed to gamble is about as simple as it gets. Turn 18 and you can walk into a casino, buy a lottery ticket, or place a bet in any of 43 countries, no exceptions and no confusion. And if you have grown up in America, you know that basically none of that applies here, because the age you're legally allowed to gamble depends entirely on which state line you're standing on. 18 for a lottery ticket in one state, a security guard checking your ID for a birthday 3 years further away the moment you cross into the next one over. That exact confusion hit plenty of the millions of European fans who landed here this summer for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, more than a few of them trying to place a friendly bet on their own team and running straight into a gambling regulation that made no sense to them. The real twist isn't America's age patchwork, though. While America obsesses over who's old enough to gamble, one European country was busy cracking down on something else entirely: how loudly and constantly gambling gets advertised, and it went further than America has ever dared to go. It isn't the country you're picturing right now. Before we get into it, drop your answer to this in the comments right now. There is one European country that banned almost all gambling advertising outright. Every TV ad, every radio spot, every online promotion in one sweeping law. Which country did it, and what year did the ban fully take effect? The answer surprises most people, because it flips the entire assumption most Americans have about which side of the Atlantic is more relaxed about gambling. The scale of America's patchwork becomes clear once you start listing the exceptions. Casino floor games and slot machines require 21 in the large majority of states, including Nevada, New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, and Mississippi. But state lotteries, charitable bingo, and horse racing typically only require 18. Tribal casinos add another layer entirely. Many of them allow 18-year-olds onto the gaming floor specifically because they don't serve alcohol, while commercial casinos a few miles away hold firm at 21. Compare that to Europe, where all 43 countries keep gambling simple at 18, with a single exception, Greece, which holds the line at 21 for gambling generally and 23 specifically to enter a casino. Sports betting adds even more confusion. After the Supreme Court's Murphy versus NCAA ruling struck down PASPA, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, in 2018, dozens of states rushed to legalize sports betting, each writing its own age rule. Montana, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Tennessee, Wyoming, and Kentucky all allow sports betting at 18. Every other state that has legalized it requires 21, matching the casino standard. And 2 states, Hawaii and Utah, still have 0 legal gambling in any form whatsoever, not even a lottery. For a European visitor used to one clean national number, the American system feels almost designed to confuse. You can be fully legal to gamble in one building and turned away at the one next door, depending on whether it's tribal or commercial, whether it serves alcohol, or whether you're betting on a game versus buying a scratch ticket. That confusion has deep roots. Nevada legalized commercial gambling in 1931, in the middle of the Great Depression, as a desperate attempt to boost a state economy that was collapsing along with its mining industry. Governor Fred Balzar signed the bill, a decision that set the template every state after him would have to consciously choose to follow or ignore. And for the next 40 years, Nevada was the only state in the entire country where you could legally walk into a casino and place a bet. That changed in 1976, when New Jersey voters approved gambling in Atlantic City, breaking Nevada's 40-year monopoly. From there, states adopted gambling piecemeal, one at a time, each writing its own rules about age, location, and which specific games counted, which is exactly why the patchwork European visitors run into today looks nothing like a single coherent national policy. It's the accumulated residue of nearly a century of individual states, each making their own separate decision. Here's where the story flips, though, and it's the part almost nobody sees coming. While America has spent years building this complicated legal patchwork around age, it has done almost nothing to restrict how loudly and constantly gambling gets advertised. Sports betting commercials run during nearly every broadcast, odds get flashed on screen mid-game, and apps like DraftKings and FanDuel advertise as aggressively as any consumer brand in the country. Put a real number on that. DraftKings and FanDuel each reported roughly $1.2 to $1.3 billion in sales and marketing spending in a single recent year, according to their own audited financial filings. That's not a typo. Over $2.5 billion combined dollars from just two companies spent almost entirely on convincing Americans, including plenty of 18 to 20-year-olds who legally can't even place a bet yet, that gambling is exciting, easy, and everywhere. The NFL itself caps how many sportsbook ads can run per game. One before kickoff, one at halftime, one per quarter, and even that capped number still adds up to national TV spending in the hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. Only 5 sportsbooks are approved to advertise under that cap at all, which means the competition for those handful of slots is fierce enough that companies are effectively bidding against each other for the right to be the ad you see during the game. Europe, on the other hand, has generally kept its age requirements simple and low at 18, but one specific country has gotten dramatically stricter about advertising in exactly the years America has gone the other direction. That country passed a sweeping law banning almost all gambling marketing outright. No television ads, no radio spots, no newspaper or magazine promotions, no internet advertising either. It was one of the most sweeping advertising bans any democracy has ever placed on a legal industry, and it happened specifically because research showed a significant percentage of that country's population was already struggling with gambling-related harm. The law was championed by a populist political party that had just swept into government promising sweeping anti-establishment reforms, giving the ban a distinctly political as well as public health character. Enforcement fell to that country's own communications regulator, which was tasked with policing violations across broadcast, print, and digital platforms. Sponsorship deals that had put betting company logos on top-flight soccer jerseys and stadium billboards disappeared almost overnight, costing local football clubs an estimated €100 million a year in lost revenue. Here's the honest complication, though. That country's own Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry, in a report published in 2022, found that gambling activity actually increased after the ban took effect, including among minors, and illegal, unregulated wagering grew right alongside it. As of this year, its government is actively debating whether to roll the sponsorship ban back, arguing it hurt football clubs financially without achieving the public health outcome it promised. So even Europe's strictest example is far from a settled success story. That country wasn't alone for long. Spain banned gambling ads on television and radio outside a narrow window between 1 and 5 in the morning, and banned athlete and celebrity endorsements entirely, a change that reportedly cost Spanish football clubs somewhere between 90 and €110 million in lost sponsorship revenue. The Netherlands went even further, banning untargeted gambling advertising altogether starting in 2023, meaning ads can now only reach users who are specifically verified as adults who've opted in. That policy is overseen by the Kansspelautoriteit, the Dutch gambling regulator, which has the authority to fine operators who target unverified audiences. As of 2025, gambling companies there are banned from sponsoring sports clubs entirely, logos and all. Belgium's approach, shaped by its royal decree of 2023, is maybe the strictest of all, a default ban on gambling advertising with only a handful of narrow exceptions, plus a hard cap on how large a gambling logo is even allowed to be on a sports jersey. Germany took a different approach, allowing advertising but restricting it to a strict overnight window and controlling its content closely. The UK, by contrast, has stayed relatively permissive on advertising even as it maintains the same 18-year-old age limit as the rest of Europe, and public health researchers there have pointed out that gambling logos can appear over 700 times during a single major football broadcast, proof that even within Europe the advertising fight is far from settled or uniform. So the honest picture looks almost backwards from what most people assume walking in. America restricts by age, aggressively and with real inconsistency depending on where you happen to be standing, but places almost no limit on how much gambling advertising reaches you regardless of your age. Europe does the opposite in several of its biggest countries, keeping the age bar low and uniform at 18, while increasingly treating the advertising itself as the actual public health problem worth regulating. And the human cost behind those numbers is real on both sides of this debate. The National Council on Problem Gambling estimates that problem gambling cases in America rose by roughly 30% in the years right after sports betting went legal nationwide following the Murphy v. NCAA ruling in 2018. New Jersey, one of the very first states to legalize it, tracks calls to its gambling support helpline by age, and the share of callers under 25 nearly doubled in just 5 years. Multiple recent surveys have found that mobile sports betting specifically carries a higher addiction risk than gambling in person, with some studies putting the rate of gambling disorder among online sports bettors as high as 16 to 20%, several times higher than gambling in general. That's the twist critics point to constantly. Even in states where the legal age is 21, the phone in your pocket doesn't check ID nearly as carefully as the doorman at a casino used to. Age verification on mobile betting apps usually comes down to an identity database check, a credit check, and sometimes a photo of an ID uploaded during sign-up. All of that can be gotten around by a determined teenager far more easily than sneaking past a bouncer checking IDs at a physical casino door. That gap between the law on paper and how easily it's actually enforced is a big part of why youth gambling rates have climbed even in states that technically still require 21. Both approaches come from a real, defensible instinct. Supporters of America's age-based system argue that restricting access at the point of the bet itself is the most direct way to protect people, especially younger adults still developing impulse control. Supporters of Europe's advertising crackdowns argue that constant exposure, not access alone, is what actually drives problem gambling, and that an 18-year-old who can legally gamble but rarely sees an ad is safer than a 21-year-old bombarded with promotions every time they watch a game. All right, let's go back to the question from the start. Which European country banned almost all gambling advertising outright, and in what year did it fully take effect? The answer is Italy, with the Decreto Dignità passed in 2018 and taking full effect in 2019, banning television, radio, print, and internet gambling advertising nationwide in one of the most sweeping moves any country has made against a legal industry. It's the detail that flips the entire narrative, because the continent most Americans assume is the more relaxed one when it comes to vice actually drew one of the hardest lines in the world, just in a completely different place than anyone expects. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think America's age-based patchwork is the smarter way to limit gambling harm? Or do you think Europe's approach of restricting advertising instead of access gets it right? And if you're European, did you know America's gambling age rules vary this much by state before watching this? Drop it in the comments, because this is one of those topics where both sides have a genuinely strong case. If you liked this video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the culture clash between Europe and America never stops being fascinating. And always remember, whether you are European or American, the culture clash between our two worlds never gets old. I'll see you on the next one.